Hello, welcome out to tonight's weekly training webinar for all of the members of Tax Sale Support. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. We conduct these webinars each week, so we appreciate our new members and want to welcome you, and of course want to welcome back all of our members that have been part of the program for a while now.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to acquiring property, really there isn't a cheaper way of doing it than you can acquire through tax sales.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
and there are a lot of properties out there to acquire right now, and we actually have members that are buying stuff up like crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even just over the last week or so, we had 3 or 4 members that are selling property, getting offers on properties. And so it's definitely a great time to be a tax sale investor. And it's kind of what we want to talk about today is, once you've gone through the process of finding a property, researching it, buying it, then you've come to that step of selling it. And that's really what we want to talk about today is different strategies and ways to market and sell your property.
Yeah, it's also important to know that, one of the advantages of buying property this way is that you are able to buy it for such a low price. It makes it easier to sell property. Most of I think most of the experience people have with selling property, or most of what you hear about even selling property, is related to property sales that happen at market value. There are a much smaller percentage of properties that are sold for less than market value or wholesale value, and that's a lot of what we can deal with when it comes to tax sale properties.
Yeah. So as far as what we want to talk about today, we want to go over a lot of the online methods and also, other methods in addition to online methods to sell your property. And so, there's a lot of different strategies. And one thing that's nice and really when it comes to what most of our coaching students are doing and many of our members are doing when it comes to selling property is they're using a lot of the online methods.
Yeah, I think the online methods are making it possible to do things today that you just couldn't have done on your own 20 years ago. We're seeing a lot of services pop up that are making it easier for people to sell things. In fact, I've noticed kind of a change even happening with real estate agents and some of the services online now that are that are being used to help buyers and sellers connect, and the real estate agent has less of a role now than they used to have even 10 years ago.
Yeah, in fact, there's a couple of paid different advertisers we'll talk about here later that you can actually, pay to a flat fee to have your property posted on the MLS.
Yeah.
So, if it is posted on the MLS, then suddenly, that's going to be additional avenue. But really, a majority of our members and students are actually selling properties without needing to go through all of those additional steps.
Yeah. In fact, a lot of what is going to end up selling your property is going to come down to the price and how you market it. But we're going to talk about each one of these services here and the way that they can be utilized to sell properties. One of them is using your social media, or even just I guess social media. When a lot of times when we think about that, we think about posting on things. Well, let's talk about what they are. Places like Facebook is a place. The Facebook Marketplace is actually a place where a lot of stuff is being listed and is a great place to list property for sale.
Yeah. And as you're looking at doing this as an actual business, let's say that you want to become a wholesaler, you want to do real estate investing as far as deed investing, then it's smart to create your own Facebook page, a place where you can list your properties for sale, an Instagram account, make sure you have a LinkedIn profile, and even something like a Twitter account. All of these are going to be methods and ways that you can promote your business that aren't going to cost a lot of money and that can drive traffic and people to your properties.
Yeah, and a lot of these are can be interconnected. Or basically once you when you begin providing one, it's not too much additional work to get the rest of it set up.
No. In fact, you can, something like Facebook and Instagram are going to be connected anyway, even as a company. And so, you can go ahead and create different marketing, and especially if you're wholesaling property or selling property at a discount, you're using, if you're selling the property yourself, if you're not using an agent, then, creating something like a Facebook real estate page, Twitter account, different things like that is going to help add credibility. So if somebody is, let's say you're seller financing a property to somebody, and they can actually go there and see, oh yeah, this is a real company or a legit investor who's selling me this property. They've got this set up. They look more legit, and this gives you credibility by creating these accounts.
Yeah, I think I totally agree. It simply gives you more ways to get your property in front of people. And you certainly do want to have something set up or established, a place where you can begin advertising your properties aside from just something like Zillow. Zillow is great, and can work really well. But what you essentially want, though, is a sort of landing page or a home page, for your operation or for your, for the properties that you sell. And there are lots of template services out there now that would enable you to, even if you wanted to create your own website. But if it's short of doing a website, though, just having things like a Facebook page can serve as that.
Yeah, absolutely. It could be whatever your name is, real estate investments or whatever. It doesn't matter, but it gives a level of credibility and legitimacy to you and to your investments. And so somebody can go there and say, okay, that is real. Let's go ahead and move on with this deal.
Yeah. Also, when you've got buyers, it's a good place for them to see other properties that you have for sale.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
Once you've got a buyer, there's always a higher chance of being able to sell them additional property.
In addition to creating your own page, it's a good idea to look at different real estate Facebook groups, different types of forums, clubs. There's so much online information. In fact, even just when it comes to real estate and Facebook's concerned, there's all kinds of, Facebook clubs for real estate areas where, maybe, we live here in Utah County. Maybe there's a Utah County real estate club or page or something like that where people can post real estate within there. Well, even if you're in California, you can go ahead and you have property you're trying to sell in Florida, you could go ahead and look to see if there is something like that within there and post it within that Florida group. And there's investor groups and real estate groups. There's so many different avenues that you can post your property in front of literally thousands of people.
Yeah, in fact, the reason you join these groups is because you have active real estate investors that are, that join these groups. And by joining these groups, they basically are indicating that they're interested in acquiring property in these areas. And by you joining this group, it can give you the ability to post property on these, with these groups, so that other people within the group are notified or see that it's for sale. It's when it comes to trying to sell anything today, how you get the people that you're going to try to sell it to or advertise is the big thing. How do you get in front of people? And the ability to email or put that product in front of somebody is something you normally have to do a lot of work for. So to be able to join a group like a Facebook group, and then to be able to to list your property up in front of a lot of different people, can be a huge advantage that doesn't cost you anything.
Yeah, well, and if you're wholesaling your property and you're listing it even on investor pages, well, if you're wholesaling it, there's enough profit there that investors would want to buy it.
Yeah.
Not just local property owners or something like that. If a lot of our coaching students will go ahead and wholesale properties to begin with, where they're selling it for about 50 cents on the dollar, and in that kind of scenario, there's still a ton of profitability.
Yeah, there's no reason why, if you're buying it from a tax sale, you could sell it to anybody. You could sell it to another investor because again, you're buying it at the very bottom. I mean, if there was something before wholesaling it, that's what this would be, because you are you're buying it at the absolute lowest possible cost that it can be bought for. Yeah, there's some other networks as well.
Yeah, these here are more of real estate social networks. Connected Investors, Bigger Pockets, and of course Tax Sale Social is just something we're just kind of starting here now. But these are different websites and places where it's really been set up for real estate investors to meet, talk, list properties for sale, and communicate with other investors.
Yeah, the nice thing about these services is, again, you're connecting like-minded people, or people that are looking for the same thing. The hardest part as a buyer is trying to, get your property in front of the right people. And joining groups like Connected Investors and beginning to network like that will help build your ability to put that property in front of a large group.
Yeah.
It's something you kind of have to build and grow.
Yeah, and Connected Investors is a great platform to be able to do it. Not only do you have the opportunity to network with other investors, but they also have a really good classified and listing section. And so, you will essentially be listing this to other investors within that area that could be interested in buying this property. So, what's nice about all of these ads is once you create the ad, it's easy to post the information from one of these services to the next.
Yeah, because essentially, what you're doing is writing out a listing or creating that, and you're going to end up essentially pasting it into different services there, because the content, the description is going to be the same. You'll just need to upload new images and put the same content in again.
Yeah, and here's an example of a listing that we did on one of our properties on Connected Investors. So you can see the information up there. It really looks pretty clean and has a pretty good look. And while we had our properties listed up there, we actually got quite a few responses and people that were interested in them. So it's definitely worth joining it and being part of the community. It doesn't cost anything to post your properties this way and to essentially be part of it on this level.
Bigger Pockets is another that you can use. They are a social media platform for real estate investors, and another place where you can create profile and list properties. It's a place where you can network with other investors.
Yeah, and really, Bigger Pockets is probably the biggest real estate. It's not a forum, like it's a social media website, and they have education and different things on top of it. But it is a good place to get information, to network with other investors, to post information. In fact, you can create your profile there where you can put information back to your Facebook page, to your own website, any of that, and your Instagram. You can connect your profile to all that information. So as you connect with other investors within that area, hey, my name's Steve. I've got some property for sale in Arkansas, in England, Arkansas. Let me know if you're interested in checking this out, or wherever the property is. Then they can go ahead and contact me. They can see my profile and also check out additional properties I have for sale.
Yeah. In fact, if it were just down to selling a single property, well, that's something that you could probably do just based on the price alone, given a little bit of time. But what you want to create is you want to create a system that makes it easier for you to sell property, and that makes it possible for you to reach more people. But the idea behind doing all the work is ultimately to create less work for yourself in the future. So you put together some of these systems and things in place that can do a lot of the work for you, so that you don't have to put as much time and effort, into selling properties. You can just simply, plug your properties into a system you already have in place, and from there they're sold.
Yeah. Tax Sale Social is, something that we've already created and it's up and running. We're not putting a huge amount of time into it now because we're kind of focusing on our membership program, but we will start building this up here in the future as well. And you can still get your questions asked, but if you're a member, you might as well just go to the forum, because we're going to take a priority to our forum students. But we do think it'll be a good place for tax sale investors to list their tax liens or deeds they're trying to sell, and connect with other real estate investors, tax sale investors.
Yeah, classified websites are also a way that you can, sell your property or list property for sale. And in fact, really, there are a lot of classified services out there where you could list property. They're almost always free, and you can certainly have paid services with a lot of them, but they're still used by a lot of Americans to buy stuff, and it's still a good way to get people that are local to a specific area. It's a good way to get that property in front of the most likely buyers.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and when it comes to classifieds, there's both national classifieds. There's also going to be local classifieds as well. So, depending on the area. So we'll list our property with national classified services, but then we'll also search for different types of local classifieds that we could list the property in that could be effective as well.
Yeah, so some of the national classified services, that are out there, Zillow's type, Trulia, you've got Craigslist, which is probably one of the more famous ones. Facebook Marketplace is one that I think is growing in popularity and relevance all the time. And then also, Yahoo Homes.
Yeah, and when it comes to the local classifieds, a lot of times there'll be newspapers, radio stations, TV stations, different things like that will have a local classified section that ends up getting some good traffic. So, where we live, there's a particular TV station, radio station, and they have a classified section, and it's by far the most used classified section within this area. So if I did want to list property for sale or something like that, I would actually list that in addition to those other areas. So that's something you'll want to look.
Yeah, like for this area, you could list it in like Craigslist, but you would probably get a lot more action with it off of KSL.
Yeah, exactly. So we would use a combination. We would still use Craigslist, but we would also be posting it in that the local classified site, because there's going to be a lot of local people that are hitting that up. So that is something.
Every area's got something too.
Yeah.
Every area is predominantly using something. I don't think there's any place in the country where they just don't we just don't do anything with classifieds. People there use something.
Well, and some of those areas, if they don't have anything, will really use Craigslist a ton.
Yeah, and those places, Craigslist will be really.
And we'll have some additional, ones that we'll talk about here in a minute. We'll just go through quickly. But that's kind of the services that you can look at. The national ones that everyone can use, everyone knows about, but then also looking at those local ones that are going to be specific to that area, but are going to be, a really good place to put your property for sale.
Yeah. One of the places that you can list property for sale is on Zillow.com. It is, a fantastic website to list property on. It has a lot of property that is that's already listed on it, and we've sold lots of property just through Zillow alone.
Yeah, I mean, Zillow is going to be a no-brainer. It's going to be one of the first places you're going to list your properties for sale. Millions of people go to Zillow, probably every month. There's a huge amount of traffic on there, and really it's a good place to go ahead and list your property. Now, there is going to be some additional steps as you have to list it. You need to be on the phone because they're going to call you with the confirmation. So the registration process or getting your property listed takes a little bit more time than your average classified ad, something like Craigslist, but it's going to be totally worth it.
They also do a lot of work to weed out, fraudulent ads. So you don't see really, fraudulent ads on Zillow, and that's part of the reason why is because they have a little bit more thorough process there for getting property listings completed. But again, it's not too difficult. We haven't had a problem so far.
No, and here's an example of one of our properties we had listed for sale. Just to kind of give you guys an example, I'm sure all of you guys have seen one Zillow ad, but we can list them as a for sale by owner, and suddenly we've got it marketed out there where everyone's going just to even look up the price of their home. That's what's nice about Zillow, is somebody could just go to look at the price of their home, and then they see, popping up here on the right-hand corner where you can just kind of barely see it, they have all of the property for sale that are right there. And so, listed next to their area or in their neighborhood, we have a lot listed for sale. So they go not even really thinking about buying a property, but suddenly see our lot listed for sale at a wholesale price, and they become interested.
Yeah, our neighbor letter, something we'll cover in this.
Yeah. And the other strategies. Trulia is essentially, part of Zillow. So when you list your property on Zillow, it'll also get posted there. So this is going to be an additional resource for you. You're usually not going to have to post it on there, because if you do post it on Zillow, it should go ahead and post it on there for you as well.
Yeah, automatically. Craigslist is used in a lot of places, so it's good to get ads on Craigslist. In fact, you're always going to want to have a listing there on Craigslist. They don't take very much time to set up.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's real easy. If you've already got the information copied and pasted, then it takes real quick, and the renewing is easy as well. All you have to do is go click on there, click the renew. It'll renew it and put you back up to the top of the listing. The listings are simple, but there is a lot of people, and in some areas that may be their primary source of classified ads, and so it's going to be a good place to get it in front of investors. Real estate investors will check Craigslist for cheap land deals or for different types of real estate deals.
Yeah. This is an example of a Craigslist ad that we put up, and again, we want to post that. It's something you're going to post local to the area, where where the property is located at. And that's kind of how Craigslist works. It's divided up into specific regions. So you're not just going to be advertising it to anybody, but it should be to the specific people that live there.
Yeah, and in fact, one thing you can do is you can market it to multiple areas within that same state.
Yeah.
So, like for example, we live here within within Utah, so I know that there's a Provo Craigslist, but there's a Salt Lake one. And an Ogden one. And so because that was within 60 miles of each other, I would probably go ahead and list it in all three of them.
Yeah.
That way I'm exposing it. It's not going to take that much more time. I'm going to do it all at once, just within each area, and then renew them each time. And, that way I've kind of given myself even a broader exposure, because there could easily be people within 60, 100 miles that's still within a close enough range that people could be interested within that property.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea to list them in multiple areas there, just because you will have it's in the same region, and you'll see when you go to post on Craigslist the way that you select a region there, and so it can be a good idea to select other nearby regions to post the same ad in. This is what Facebook Marketplace looks like, and if you haven't logged into it, look at it before, it's worth taking a look at. These are some of the properties that we had listed here locally.
Yeah.
I mean, not our properties. This is just what Facebook Marketplace looks like when we pull it up.
Yeah, exactly. So if you were just to look underneath real estate, it looks something similar to like this. But really, I think that this is a great tool to use. It's free to use. You can post it, and there's a lot of people who are using it that we're able to market real estate to, that may not be thinking of buying real estate, or may not necessarily be looking, but are on here looking at Facebook Marketplace. And especially if we're wholesaling property, that's one kind of advantage as well. I mean, there will be people who are looking specifically with property, but if we're wholesaling property, this is going to have a wide range of potential eyes on it that may not go to something like Craigslist.
Yeah, which also something else that is worth talking about there is seller financing is a huge opportunity that gets utilized in a lot of ways, all over the country. But it is it is a great way to sell property, especially property if you bought it through a tax sale wholesale. Seller financing is a great way to set up residual income.
Yeah, in fact, we were just looking through, the Facebook Marketplace over the last day or so, kind of looking at how the real estate works, how land sells with on it, land sells, different ad examples, just to kind of get an idea of how people are doing it. And it was amazing how many different people are offering, these land investments through seller financing, offering that, here on Facebook where, they're getting the down payment, they're putting somebody in there that's paying the monthly payments on it. And it's a great way for that person to buy property that they maybe couldn't afford or couldn't get financing for. And also gives that, the investor an opportunity to make some money up front, but then also get that residual income.
Yeah, in fact, I think there are a ton of advantages to offering seller financing. In a lot of ways, there are even advantages in that over, selling it for wholesale, right away, because seller financing enables you to maintain that ownership for a longer period of time. Plus creating the ability, to collect monthly residual income. It enables you to sell a property for a higher price. There are a lot of things about seller financing that are very attractive to investors, and something that with tax sales work out so well.
Yeah.
Yeah, Facebook Marketplace does have a lot of good opportunities, and they are pretty good about advertising. I think we could attract people with just the sheer just with the value of the opportunity.
Yeah. Now, these aren't all necessarily paid advertising websites, but some of them are, and some of them definitely are, but some of them won't be. But there's a lot of different websites out there in addition to just the free websites that are focused on on driving buyers to their websites and cost some type of fee. And so as far as land focused websites, there's LandWatch, Landmodo, Land and Farm, and all of these, even though I put land focused in structure or home focused, essentially you could sell property on either one of these, whether it be land or structured, but they're kind of more focused towards that. Lands of America, classifieds.com is a free website you can post on, landflip.com. And as far as home focus, there's quite a few other ones out there like forsalebyowner.com.
Yeah, which and a lot of times the paid classifieds are not necessarily expensive.
Yeah.
Paid classifieds can be a fairly small expense that you can use to get the property advertised in front of a lot of additional people.
Well, and if you are dealing with something like, if you're having a hard time selling a property or need to get more exposure on a piece of land, it could be worth, trying something like that out for a couple of months. Or if you're looking at higher priced property, more valuable property, also any type of structure property, then putting something like on a for sale by owner. That's a pretty big website. There's millions of people that go there every year. That's going to give you a level of exposure. Owners.com and I think it's Fizber.com. They both have MLS options where you could pay a flat fee and have your property listed on the MLS. In fact, that was, that could be a good option if you are having a hard time selling your property, or if you want some additional exposure. It's going to cost a fee though. It's probably a couple of $100. I would bet it's at least $100, $200 at least. But for more expensive properties, that could be a good way to sell your property.
Yeah. In fact, there are so many tools out there for selling property.
Yeah, even something like LoopNet, that's a free service, or you can post it on there for free for some commercial properties. And so if you do have commercial properties, you can't place commercial properties for sale on Zillow. So we're automatically going to be kind of out of the Zillow, ad game if we do have a commercial property. So we're going to want to supplement that with something like LoopNet.
There are a lot of other services out there. And if we decide not to use one of them, there's always the option to auction off these properties using a service like eBay. And that's because we buy these at the best price. And so we're going to have that option there to sell them. You generally, with auction websites, your profitability is going to be a little lower. You know, the auction website itself is going to have fees that are involved with it. They can be upwards of 10% roughly.
Yeah. Well, and there can also be listing fees as well, depending on the type of auction. You know, when it comes to auction and property, there's kind of two strategies that you could go at. One that we look at is if you're just trying to get out of the property and you're selling it, you know, as is, starting, you know, highest bid wins, starting at $100 or something like that. So, you know, or whatever. And so kind of depending on the property, I guess if it's a more expensive property, but usually we use the auction method in kind of a last case scenario where we're just tired, we want to get out of this property, we want to make our money out of it. And for, you know, for as far as our coaching students, we've helped go through it and sell on eBay, they've been able to double or triple or quadruple, you know, 2 or 3 times what they paid for the property, but they're not making the type of profits they could through a classified.
Yeah, we had somebody last week was telling me that they sold a property on eBay for like $1,300.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the coaching members, I think. But you know, yeah, that's always an option there, and certainly one.
You can also offer seller financing as well.
Oh yeah, in fact,
through eBay, where the bid amount is the down payment, and then you can also sell it with a higher opening bid amount. So let's say we didn't want to sell it for under $4,000. We could start out the minimum bid at $4,000. Probably maybe somebody bids on it, maybe they don't. But you're kind of looking for that one person to buy it.
Yeah, you don't necessarily have to sell it for nothing. You know, you can either set the bidding up higher, or you know, I guess you could set a reserve too if you wanted.
They also have classified section of eBay as well, where you pay a flat fee to list it if you know the price. You know, like let's say you're selling a building lot for $49.95, you know, $5,000 or something. You know, you can go ahead and list it within the classified side of eBay where it'll post it within the auction, but it's more of a classified style, buy it now.
Yeah, which you know, that can work.
Yeah, and that could expose you. You know, that could be worth doing, especially if, you know, you had information on your listing to connect them back to your website where you have a ton more property to sell that you can sell them.
Yeah, in fact, yeah, as you start to build up that system for selling properties, it can be a good idea to you know, to list some properties using stuff like that, because all it really does is just help expand your network.
Yeah.
You know, and get your property in front of more eyes. You basically just looking for things you can do here and setting it up that will help to streamline the process for you, so that you can you don't have to spend a lot of time doing any of it.
Yeah, Bid4Assets is another place. You know, most of us probably as tax sale investors think of it as a place to actually buy property, but you can't, you know, tax sale property in particular, but you can sell property there as well. And there's kind of some different other services out there like this, but you know, Bid4Assets has no dollar, you know, starting bid, no dollar reserve, no homes and land. In fact, sometimes there can be property that's worth buying in there, you know, where people will sell tax sale properties. They'll resell them through, you know, Bid4Assets, and you can get them in the no reserve. So it is worth checking to see what type of deals are in there occasionally. But that could be an option to sell your property.
Yeah, there are other auction providers out there aside from eBay. You know, they're just the biggest. You know,
yeah, auction.coms, you know, they're actually pretty big now too, but eBay, you know, they're definitely bigger.
Yeah.
You know, Hubzu, Reality Bid, Exome,
Realty Bid.
Yeah.
But you know, if you want to sell it through the auctions, those are kind of the big ones, though, and yeah, it's hard to argue with eBay.
Yeah, so we've just kind of went through all of some of the online strategies that we use, that our students use, that of course our membership use, you guys use in selling property. There's also some strategies that are not necessarily online strategies, but things that we're going to look at. Number one being a for sale sign. Now, when we're wholesaling property, especially if we're paying, if we're buying it for very cheap and selling it for cheap, we're not always going to have the, to spend the money of having a sign placed on the yard, on the lot, because there might be limited traffic driving past that. And, it may cost to send somebody out there $100, $200.
Yeah, it could easily cost $200 to get a sign up in the yard, and that's a huge cost if you're not into the property for very much, and especially you have to consider what kind of an effect it's going to have.
But if you're in a high traffic area,
yeah,
let's
it could
say,
make sense.
Kind of give you an example, Michael, one of our coaches on one of the properties he bought, was it was worth about 22 grand, was a parking lot on Main Street. Within a town. Well, in that kind of scenario, it could make sense because you've got 1,000 cars or 1,500 cars or however many cars driving past that location every day, and it's a higher priced property, so it would make sense.
Yeah, the better your location is, or at least the closer into to traffic, the more effective a for sale sign can be. But there are alternatives to doing a for sale sign if the cost on it is going to be high. Which, by the way, if you don't live, there locally, obviously, you still need somebody to go out and do it. That's where you can hire somebody like a handyman to do it for you.
Yeah.
And
if you had enough property within an area, it could make sense and say, okay, here, drive past these 4 properties. I'm going to send you the signs. You put them on it. It could make sense. In fact, we love doing a for sale sign, and it makes sense, but where it doesn't make sense is where sometimes we're buying these wholesale properties and selling them for pretty cheap as well, or we're making, a good return on it, but we're selling them quickly, we're selling them to neighbors, we're selling them at discounted rates. So, the time and money to put in and doing a for sale sign just isn't going to be the return on investment that we're looking for.
No, but there are some alternatives. If we don't want to sink that kind of money into it, we can do a simple mail campaign to the neighbors. We call these neighbor letters also. But the idea is to simply let the neighbors nearby know that the property is for sale. We're selling it, and that we're willing to offer them a great discount on it if they want it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have this happen all the time, where the neighbor will go ahead and buy it. In fact, this could be neighbors can be one of the best people to offer seller financing, because when we offer seller financing, we just don't want their down payment. If we're going to go through the hassle of sending out a contract, getting the down payment, working out the seller financing, we want somebody who's going to be with it long term and wants to pay for the property. It isn't just kind of, interested and will after 2 months quit paying and we're stuck. Even though we don't lose any money, we made our money back. We don't like doing that. We like the people that have put money in the property to be able to get it. Well, that's where the neighbor letter could come in real handy, because, let's say you're selling a $5,000 lot. Well, the neighbor may not have $5 grand, but they do have $1,000, and they'd be more than willing to pay $150 a month or $200 a month for the next 24 months and pay off the property that way.
Yeah, Victoria had a great question. She was asking how many neighbor letters, do we think you should send out? And really, it kind of depends on how many neighbors that people have.
Yeah.
Sometimes sometimes it might only be 3 or 4, and sometimes it might be 8 or 10.
Yeah, anywhere between 4 to a dozen. It's not going to cost that much more money. As far as the stamps are concerned, the letter's concerned, and we're just kind of sending out that basic letter, letting people know that we've purchased the property, we're going to be putting on the market, and if they're interested in, and this is one thing we do, we give it to the neighbors for cheaper than we listed on the market for.
Yeah, they offer them an additional discount, if they're interested in buying it even below whatever we're going to list it at. And a lot of times I think that's also, if people don't feel like you're trying to gouge them, if it's a great deal, they're all more likely to jump on.
And you could still make a 2,000% or 3,000% return off of it, and they're still getting the property at a highly discounted rate. And you're making a huge return.
Yeah. Now, another good question that's just asked there is, is how do we get the neighbors' names and addresses? And again, a great question. For us, it's all about trying to do things, spending as little time as possible. We don't want to have to spend a ton of time with this. And the fastest way is to not worry about getting their names and to simply get their physical addresses. And we can do that actually on Zillow, usually the same way that when we're looking at the other properties, when you click on any of the overhead properties, it'll give you the precise address on the property along with the the property value. So we'll usually look at the neighbors there and get their precise addresses off Zillow.
Yeah, Zillow works really good, especially if we're looking at structured properties. So if we're looking to get the homes within the area, sometimes let's say we're looking at lots and there's a bunch of lots next door to it, then what we're going to go is into the county record information, even something like sometimes the county maps. If you look up the property, you can click on the next property over and it'll pull up the property record, or you can look up that street and see all those other property owners on there. But in looking up that way, you would actually have the owner's mailing address as well. So, if it's a lot, it may not have if you're buying a lot and there's a lot next to it, it may not have a physical address. But if we go look within the county record, we can find out where that owner's physical address is and send them a letter that way.
Yeah, which a lot of it kind of depends. Sometimes we can get into county GIS mapping systems that will enable you, or allow you to click on other properties, to pull up information, which would make it really easy. A lot of times though, it seems like they're more, I don't know, they're worried about privacy more, and so they don't allow you to do that.
You could still look it up by the street number, the area though.
Yeah.
And pull up, because, we're looking up the property record, to find the property. You can still look up the surrounding property records. It may take a couple of more due diligence steps, but you're going to get accurate information.
Yeah. A real estate agent or a realtor could also be another resource for selling property, but not the way that they're traditionally used, at least not the way that most people traditionally use.
Yeah, and really this is kind of the reason we put this very last, is because everything up till now we're going to be doing. If we hire a realtor, they're going to be doing all of that, in most cases. So if we were to hire a real estate agent and they're going to do the property, they're the ones that's going to be marketing the property. They're the ones that's going to be listing the property. They're going to be doing all of the selling stuff. And so really, you either do all of what we just talked about, or you have a realtor do it. The only other exception with that would be if you contact realtors within the area where your property is located and let them know that you'll give them a commission if they bring you a buyer.
Yeah, which, the real estate agents, with the way they normally work, the way they work with finance properties, it doesn't work on a lot of the properties that we want to sell, but it doesn't change the fact that they have a lot of contacts and that they may, know people that are prepared to buy property, and, that being able to let them know that you've got the property for sale could still be really beneficial to you. So, they can be a great resource, but you have to set up something to pay them outside of the norm, because the properties that you're selling would be wholesale properties, unless, of course, you're taking them through quiet title, and then it's just like any other real estate transaction. But if you're going to do it through a quitclaim deed, then you're going to have to work out some kind of arrangement, ahead of time. And as long as they're making money on it, I think that they're happy to make a deal happen.
Yeah.
But you're not going to be able just to blast it to realtors in general. But if you can establish a couple of relationships, then certainly they could be contacts that would be worth having.
Well, and if you're willing to offer a higher commission as well. So your traditional, role of a real estate agent within a tax sale property is we bought a property. It's usually going to be a higher value property that we're not planning on wholesaling, that we're planning on taking through quiet title. Most likely it's going to be some type of structured, because, we live here in Utah, the properties in Florida, we can't show that property to potential buyers flying out there to show the property, we need somebody there on the ground to be able to do it. And so it makes sense to pay the money, go through quiet title, fix up the property or do whatever we're going to do, and then have an agent sell it for the very highest price that it can, which will justify us paying the agent, justify us using the, spending the extra money to go through quiet title.
Yeah, which, if you buy enough properties, eventually you're going to need to do that anyway. And if you're buying them in the same area, it's going to be a good idea to start establishing
but if you are having a hard time selling a property, it can be worth it to, just make a few phone calls. Hey, I've got a property for sale, I purchased it through a tax sale, and really we want to be upfront with them as much as possible, because they may know an investor that says, okay, well, that's a good deal. No problem. Let me talk to my buddy, my buddy John. He'll put that in a second.
Yeah.
And so we'll offer him a higher commission.
Yeah.
Offer him 10 cents, not 10 cents, 10%, or 8%, 10%, even 15%, especially if they're getting you an offer where that's going to be, they're bringing you a full offer or a higher priced offer where, you can actually sell it higher with the agent bringing it. And then we would still transfer it the same way.
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, the ability to offer agents a much higher commission can attract them to, to wholesale deals, like this, sort of find buyers for wholesale deals like this, because.
And they may know buyers, that was really the case, a lot of times when I first became a real estate agent, there was, an agent there who just worked with investors, and she had this group of investors and all they did, and I just remember, because I remember, going and looking in her, we all had like these boxes or whatever where you get your paycheck and your stuff, and you could see her paycheck down there for like, 60 or 80 grand in commission off of these huge deals, but she just had constant people that were referring her. And so if she had got somebody that says, hey, of course this is on a big scale, but though still you're going to have agents that know people, and hey, you've got a good deal property, they're going to know somebody who will buy it, and especially if they can make a good commission off of it.
Yeah. So, really, it's pretty much everything we've got here for this evening. Thanks for joining us though tonight. If you'd like us to cover something on one of these coming weeks here for the weekly webinar, send us an email, and we'd love to do it for you.
Yeah, so. Exactly. And one quick reminder as well, we have the 3-day scheduled for next month. We are filling up seats right now. We still have some seats available. For members that are interested, we've discounted that price on the tickets down to $997. So if you can make it out there, if you're going to be in the Vegas area and you'd like to attend, we'd love to see you. We'd love to meet you. We're pretty excited about it.
Yeah. So thanks so much, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.
Have a good night.